Hello, everyone, and welcome to IPSOS Insights. My name is Asger Mortensen, and I'm heading up our qualitative team here in IPSOS in Copenhagen, and I'm coordinating this event. The focus of the presentation today is empathy and empathy in marketing. We've chosen this topic, first of all, because we experience a lot of interest in empathy from our clients, and also because we believe empathy is an essential foundation in order to be relevant and to connect with your consumers on a deeper level. So empathy is the capability to place yourself in another's position and to make decisions that are based on this deep, profound understanding of your consumers. Today's speaker is April Jeffries. She will talk much more about this. April, you're based in the US. April is the president of Global Ethnography and Immersion at IPSOS, which means that, that April is driving the empathy agenda in IPSOS. And you're just the right expert to talk to us today about empathy. April will talk about what empathy is, why it's important to have empathy with your consumers, and of course, most importantly, how can we create empathy? How can we create a culture of empathy in our organizations? If you have questions as we go along during the presentation, just put them in the chat box. April, I will keep an eye out for the questions, and I will let you know as we go along. Yeah, with that said, April, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Asger. So, hello, everyone. I won't say good morning. It is morning for me in a very rainy New York day, but I am very excited to be here. As Asger said, I am the empathy expert here at IPSOS these days, and I can't imagine a better job because it just seems to play out in so many ways. So what we're going to talk about today is why empathy is important, and I hope to be able to share some of that, some great examples with you as to what we've been able to learn and see and do based on having a new focus on empathy. So the first thing I'm going to start with, and this is, I'd like for us to be a little interactive through this, especially up front. I'm going to ask you to go to www.menti.com and answer this question. When was the last time you spent time with the people that use your products or services? And I'll let you define for yourself what spent time means. But if you could go to menti.com and put in the code 8529623, and there's going to be a couple of options for you to answer, either in the past week or the past 6 months, the past year, the past 5 years. But I'm trying to get a feel for how often you all meet with your consumers, and we're going to talk about that word in a minute. But I really want to see how much you think you do that lately. So I see some answers coming in. We've got some good stuff. You all are a pretty good crowd here, from what I can tell so far. Okay. All right, I have about 21 people who have answered here. Okay, let's keep, I'm going to go ahead and show you so that we can keep going. So here's what you said. A lot of you said it's been in the past week. So congratulations. I feel like I can kind of tailor this presentation to you all because you seem to be able to spend time pretty quickly. Many said in the past 6 months, and we had someone say that it was in the past year, all of which are not bad answers. So let's just keep that in mind as we go through what empathy really is and what it's going to mean for us as we move forward. Also, what it means for brands and businesses. So let's talk a little bit about that. And again, I hope to give you some ways of going about being more empathetic as we go through it. So when we do this, I'm going to start with a story. I'd love for you to look at this picture and tell me, what do you see? You can type it right into the chat box there, but I'd love to hear your perspective of when you look at this picture, what are some of the things that you see? Any thoughts? We've got a mom and a dad here. Someone said they see Joy. Yep, I see Joy. Joy's a good one. Got that cute little baby. I wish you could see her. A parents with a new baby. That's exactly right. Let's be literal about it. Parents, their life so far. Mom and dad together with their baby. Yeah, a happy family. Exactly. The biggest moment in a parent's life so far. Absolutely. Two people focused on their baby. Exactly. Yeah. So all these things are what you see. A new start. Love that. Parents, happiness, proudness, all of those things are absolutely right. Traditional family. Yeah, this is traditional for sure. So things like love and this new start, there's a hope for the future here. All kinds of things you can just sort of assume when you see this family together. Now, I'm going to ask you to think about this in the context of their lives. So in order to understand their context, let's pull back a little bit. Now, what do you see? Any thoughts? Has it changed what you thought before? A sick child. Yeah. Other thoughts? Well, it changes every concern. Exactly. It changes everything and it changes how you would talk to this traditional family. It's a difficult start, correct. Mom and dad together with their newborn child. Um, the baby lived through the birth, absolutely, but it's love in a hard situation. I love these answers. You guys are awesome. Hope in the future. Absolutely. And so that future actually contains a little bit of a prayer of some kind, right? They're worried, they're concerned, and how you talk to them will change completely. My point that I'm trying to make here is that sometimes by including context and what's going on around someone can completely change the nature of what you saw the first time. And that, my friends, is what empathy can do. Let's do this again. So this is Agnes, and I'm just going to tell you Agnes's story. Agnes turned 92, which, in some cases you might say she won, man. She's 92 years old. She's been around for a good long time. Her family threw her this lovely celebration because they love her and they want to celebrate the fact that she's made it to 92. But I will tell you that at this celebration, Agnes had a gluten-free cake. She had salt-free chicken that they served her, and her grandchildren allowed her one celebratory glass of wine. So you might think that Agnes is celebrating and is happy, and you might, put something together to help her with that. But here's who Agnes really is. Agnes is forever 18. And if you try to take the car keys away from her, she will give you a fight for your money, right? So when you look at Agnes, and just because she's 92, how you celebrate with her will really change once you understand what's happening on that tattoo on her back, right? Agnes is planning a trip to Mexico next summer with her girlfriend, and I'm not sure that her family is quite ready for that. So again, all this is about empathy. And so to understand not just the close up and pulling back so you understand context, the what may seem obvious on the outside and then digging a little bit deeper into people's lives, all that can be addressed by what I'm referring to as empathy. So right now, we're all in the midst of this COVID up and downness. I don't know about there where you guys are, but here in the US for sure, we've been quarantined, we've been not quarantined. We've got restaurants opened and then they shut down. So I think we're going to be in and out of this for a while, but I can tell you right now is the time for empathy if there ever was one. And in fact, Bob Leodes, who's the head of our advertising agency here in the US, talks about empathy being used as a verb, right? They actually say that. In times of crisis, he says brands are exploring every possible means to remain helpful and relevant. So making empathy a key part of your decision-making process is a very wise approach. It's a smart thing to do. And in some ways, this is an opportunity that we probably won't get again. People's habits are changing, their behaviors are changing, and even the way they're feeling about some things is changing. I'm not going to spend the whole time today talking about the COVID thing and what's happening, but I do want to mention, it would be remiss for me not to say this, that there's some stuff going on right now that we cannot ignore when it comes to the people that are using your products. It's fertile ground, quite frankly, for things like innovation and how people are going to address problems and things like communication. Right now, people need to feel connected. They need to feel heard. They need to feel safe. All those things are things that brands can actually play a really nice role in if we understand what people are going through. So, what exactly is empathy? Well, when you can empathize with someone, it actually means that you think the things that they are thinking. You feel the things that they're feeling, and you do the things that they do. And in some cases, you keep yourself from doing the things that they can't do, right? It is really about stepping into the life of someone else and then creating value. And I try not to use the word consumers. It's creating value for the people that you serve, because that word consumers sort of takes you to a different place. Now, at Ipsos, we talk about empathy in a couple of ways. There's emotional empathy, which is what I just suggested. You know, it's about stepping into someone else's life. But there's a ladder to it. So you can go from emotional empathy to what we call cognitive empathy. It starts with being able to feel someone else's pain, and it's not always pain, it's not always a bad thing. It's about being able to feel what they feel, right? But then once you feel that, you understand that person a little bit better. And once you understand that person a little bit better, here's the kicker. Here's where you can do something about that. Here's where you bring your resources, your problem solving abilities, your perspective on a situation so that you can help them with that. When I show that picture of the family with the baby, it's very interesting because, you know, if you've been through a situation like that where you've had a sick child or even had to take care of someone who was infirmed in any way, there's a whole set of things that you bring to that situation that could be helpful. So it's about really being able to not just feel all these feelings. What do you do with them, and how do you turn that into something that people can get value out of? There's something called an empathy index, which was done by the Harvard Business Review a couple of years ago. And in it, this woman actually ranked companies that, according to what she called the Global Empathy Index. She included things in that index like ethics, like leadership, the ways people were perceiving the brand. She included things like public messaging and social media, how they were talking about the brand. She also included stuff like diversity and how it was playing out in their organization as well as on their boards. So there was a lot of stuff going on in terms of how she ranked these companies. And once she did that, she saw that there was a big difference between the companies who landed on the top of that ranking and the companies that landed on the bottom. More than 2 times the increase in value, more than 6% difference in their average earnings, and a negative 9% of the people that fell on the bottom. So there's not just, you know, a nice thing to do going on here. There's real business reasons for why you want to have empathy in your organization. And I love this chart only because MIT is my alma mater. This is where Tim Cook gave the commencement address, and he talked about, you know what, people are going to tell you to keep empathy out of what you do, but guess what? Don't accept that. It's a false premise. I find that interesting because Tim is, you know, the head of Apple. It is a technology company in some ways, but if you think about it, they really do know how to empathize with the people that use their products for sure. 150 CEOs, 80% recognize empathy as a key to success. And when you have empathy, I can also tell you that it it impacts your organization. People are more likely to stay with your organization. They're more likely to work longer hours. They'll take a pay cut to work for a company that empathizes with them. So it has benefits, not just in revenue and in the business, but also in the organization and the people that manage to stay. But I argued that you can't start when you know, approach this whole empathy thing with the business in mind. So what do I mean by that? Well, tip number one, I think first of all, you guys said that you had, you know, spent time with the people that use your products. So I'm not going to give you a lot of reasons why that's necessary. But when you do, I think it's important to note that it's not about you. We all tend to go into these conversations and meetings with business questions on our minds for sure. How do I build penetration? How do I increase frequency? How do I make you use this more? How do I get to be the brand leader? Right? These are some of the things that we go in with as business people. But you need to translate your feelings into what they might be feeling. So, my first tip is when you talk to people about your business, I would start with things like, you know, how can I reassure you? Or how can I make things easy for you to do what it is you're trying to do right now? How do I inspire something? How do you provide an experience for someone? If you can see that they're uncomfortable, how might you make them more comfortable? And how do you motivate them? I think there's a huge difference in the conversation that you will get if you start with questions that are like, how do I get you to use more of my products? Which, by the way, I've heard some clients actually say that, versus, you know, so how might I make things easy for you to get to this or to use this? And you'll get a whole nother level of conversation. I find that people feel that they've been asked something that really digs a little bit deeper. So at Ipsos, we talk about creating a culture of this cognitive empathy I've been talking about. And we start with this shift in how people think and making sure that shift is initiated within the organization. And then we spend a lot of time connecting and immersing in people's lives. And I'm going to spend most of my talk today about how to connect and things that you might get from there. And lastly, there's this area of now taking those insights and acting and creating value from them. And a lot of times we do that by sharing what we've learned, and we do that by workshopping it all together so that we can sort of take these insights and move them into action. So, how do we do that? There are 4 different steps to getting there, to getting to a real culture of empathy. It's about seeing people, it's about hearing them and doing some deep listening. It's about experiencing what they are experiencing or putting yourself in that experience. And then it's about understanding and knowing what to do as a result of what you've seen, heard, and experienced. So let's start with this idea of seeing people. Observation. So, what happens when you can really observe what is going on? Well, for one thing, you can start to have a little compassion about seeing people in their real life situations. The other thing that happens is you start to expose some things that people aren't always able to tell you. So, it's what's unsaid that becomes really important. It's about capturing moments and it's about revealing some truths that, again, not everyone is always able to tell you. So in this case, we did some ethnographies with this guy. This is my friend Joseph, and it was all about finding a moment. Now I'm going to tell you before I show you this video. Joseph is whispering, so you're going to have to listen pretty carefully. I will tell you what it is he's saying afterwards, in case you can't hear him too good. But more importantly, I want you to observe, to look and see what he's doing and what is happening as he does it. Okay, so let's find a moment with Joseph.
Show you my one true secret. It's a pack of cigarettes. I haven't been a consistent smoker for years, and I plan to not be again, but like a profound feeling to me that I get to just go outside, smoke one cigarette exactly,
So if you couldn't hear what he was saying was that he just needed a profound moment where he could just go outside and smoke his one cigarette. If you were observing, you could see where he keeps his stash, right? He has to kind of go up under some things and pull it out. And what's interesting is this did happen during the whole pandemic issue, which made it difficult for us as researchers actually to get into people's homes. And what we did instead was have people send us videos of things. And it was quite interesting because what we saw over a period of time was people sharing little secret moments like that we might not have seen otherwise if we were just trying to have them explain it to us. But here's another tip for you. So when you're observing, what does that mean and what are you looking for? Well, we're actually looking for a few things. You're looking for context, what's going on around them. You're looking for moments. I think what I love about this video is that Joseph has a very poignant moment where he can just breathe for a minute. He can share with us for a minute. Now I will tell you, we spent some time with Joseph, and he's this guy who's like doing puppet shows with his children who are now at home. I mean, he's really been engaged with his family up until then, but this moment was his, and he shared that with us. So it was pretty cool. You're also looking for patterns. So once you've seen a few of these things happen, you're going to start to see that there's quite a few people who now need some time to themselves. And what does that mean? And how might you, as a brand, start to address those kinds of moments? So what's next? We start with seeing. We move on to hearing. Now we're talking about deep listening and what that means and how do you do that? So I have a quote here from Carl Rogers who says, "We think we listen, but very rarely do we listen with real understanding and true empathy. Yet, listening of this very special kind is one of the most potent forces for change that I know." So what I'm going to recommend in terms of listening is spending time with people and spending quality time with them. So sometimes it can be done by just having a conversation. We've set up with several clients things that are ongoing connect programs where you can sit and talk with a person that is using your product in certain ways, and just sort of see what it is they're doing, how it plays out. And again, if this becomes a way of being for your organization, it really does start to make you into a more empathetic culture. So I can't share with you all the insights that we got, but I can share with you what it is we did. We had people join us in conversation. When we were able to get out, we did a little more of actually going into people's homes and seeing what it was they were doing. So here was a program that we did in Russia. We did another one in the across Turkey and Southeast Asia, where we had 14 different immersions where we went to people and we saw what they did in terms of their beauty regime. It was really kind of interesting to see the places that they focused, the times of day that they focused, the things that they did when they were preparing for their makeup versus the things that they did when they were actually putting it on. Things that, again, they couldn't even really tell us, but we could see and we can hear. And as they started speaking to us about why these things were important, you started to match that up with the things that you could observe. So I would recommend actually having a good program that makes it easy for all the people in your organization to connect with those that are using your products. And here are some tips when you go to listening to people. First of all, we talked about the business question to people question. Suspend your own agenda. Don't go in with what it is you think is going to happen. I would keep questions very open-ended. And you know what? Don't be afraid of silence in those open-ended questions. There are sometimes I hear more in the silence than I do in the words that people are saying. Be spontaneous, form a real connection with people, and allow yourself to be naive. While we have been thinking about our businesses night and day, this is an opportunity to let that go and let someone else sort of share with you what it is they think about what you're doing. Look for things that are unsaid, any kind of contradiction, or that you can see some kind of evasion or even a lie going on. Whenever I see something different between what people say and what they do, it is like gold to me because that's where real insights lie. That's where the tension is. And in tension, there is insight, right? So here are just some tips that as you're trying to talk to people and as you're doing more of connecting with people, these are some things to kind of keep in mind as you go through that. The next area here is around experiencing, and that's not always easy, but to the extent that you can really get inside the life of what people are doing, it can really start to open up doors for you. So here's a program that we did. We called it the Weekday Breakfast Immersion. We did it in many countries at the same time. Before COVID hit, we actually had people come in. We saw what they did for their breakfast routine, how they put their plates together, some of the things that they were considering as they did that. And it was quite the experience. But then COVID hit, right? And we had people send us videos and pictures of special moments during their breakfast or as they were making things, what they were doing. And it was interesting because we actually learned some very different things. So, again, this was a program of being immersed as they were in a moment that in this case was actually breakfast time, right? The other thing we found, and this is interesting, as let's see, as we entered this period, we didn't really know what we were up against, right? We had a lot of things starting to shut down, and we weren't sure exactly how any of this was going to play out. What I'm going to show you are two different videos. This was a guy named Jordan who we started to follow when back on May 6th. So the COVID thing had already begun. He and his roommate moved. They moved out of the city. And he just kind of talked to us really briefly about sort of how he was feeling about things going on. So quickly, I'll show you what Jordan was thinking at the time.
Being in New York is that I do have this very immediate community that's around me all the time. Up here, I don't. This is my roommate's house. We are currently upstate, about 2 hours outside of New York City. We left for the pandemic. Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, so that's Jordan. He's an actor actually in New York. And the other thing he talked about was, this whole idea of being scary because he's a black man, and that he could see that there was some disparity in terms of how black people were being affected by the virus. He talked about his parents who had to continue working; they were essential workers, and he was a little nervous and scared about that, but he wasn't really sure how all this was going to play out. So we stayed with Jordan and we kept having him send us videos and we had him do activities and tasks. I'm going to show you a piece of another clip that Jordan sent us and Jordan and a few other people sent us at the end of May. So 4 weeks had passed since he had first sent that video that you saw.
How many black people gotta die for this shit to happen? How many black people gotta die? I definitely just got sprayed with tear gas. And this stuff, tear gas ain't no joke. Like, it's crazy.
I don't know if people are looking at this as a solution of anything. I don't think anybody came out here and said, I'm gonna fix the problem.
I think that America is waking up to the reality that we're not a great country just because we're inherently great. We actually have to work.
I'm upset. Let's come together.
We have had a brutal police killing.
All right, I'm going to stop there. But the point I wanted to show was Jordan, who first kind of shared with us his, new environment and some of his, tentativeness, actually ended up in the midst of some demonstrations in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement. And to see his progression from one place to the next is something that I don't think he could have really just told us. It was something that we were able to see and experience with him. So having that happen is a great thing to keep doing. So what happens when you're really experiencing things with other people? And here are some tips about that. First, we had to teach them how to take the pictures and how to take the videos that we can use. So what you saw there was interesting. We always thought we had to go in with our cameras when it came to, whatever. These people took pictures and took their videos on their own, and we taught them how to do that, which way was the best way to hold the camera, things like that, and how to be prepared for these moments, right? So we were able to capture some great things. It's about capturing moments. It's about giving them maybe tasks. I don't know that Jordan necessarily was ready to be a part of a demonstration, but we asked him to just sort of take a look at what's going on as he goes home from work. And he saw this demonstration and joined it and became, very much engaged in a movement, if you will. And we asked them to observe and to really look at what's going on around them. So you go from seeing me to hearing to experiencing. And lastly, you want to make sure that you understand. And understanding to me is about moving into action. Now, in this case, I'm going to move to from protests and riots to pets, right? So let's end on a little bit more of a loving note here. But in this case, we did an ethnography for a pet company, and in it we went into this trying to understand owners and their relationships with their pets, as well as their how they prepare food. And the assumption going in, as I told you before, always go in without an agenda. We had an agenda. So I'm just telling you, sometimes we all do that. But the agenda going in was that we thought this was a value play. We thought that the whole dog food thing was about coming up with the cheapest and trying to convince people that there was value based on the price. Here is what we saw when we actually were in with people in their environments. This was actually one of the countries we covered was Brazil.
Torta! Vem cá, meu amor! O que tá acontecendo nessa casa, mamãe? Quem tá em casa bagunçando você? Hein? Oh, coração. Totoquinha, vamos dormir? Vamos dormir? Isso. Vamos dormir com a mamãe? Vamos dormir com a mamãe.
Vem, Lico. Vem. Vem, papá, vem. Ó que gostoso, ó. Vai, papá, Lico, vai. Agora eu tô fazendo do Júnior. Ó, a mesma carne.
Ele parece um bebê. É tudo dele. É do Roger. Não é de você. É do Roger. Já fala na cara pra não vir querendo comer.
Meio de carne moída?
Eu amo carne moída. Então, pode pôr aí pra mim, umas 3 vezes na semana eu faço. Agora, pro Roger, faz todo dia.
Eu já pesquisei na internet que alho, que a gente usa muito comida com alho aqui, mas alho e cebola pro bichinho, para qualquer animal faz mal. Depois que eu vi que fazia mal, eu parei de colocar. O gato não tem ração, é só isso. Pro cachorro, eu vou tirar um pouquinho só e misturar com a própria ração dela, que ela come mais. Lembra que a gente colocou no Google e aí apareceu essa, a gente viu os comentários e acabou pegando essa.
So we came out of this study with a whole nother appreciation of the relationship that people in Brazil have with their pets. This was not about value. It was not about money for them. It was these people are buying fresh meat for their dogs and cooking it up every day. It was interesting when the little boy said, "Yes, she cooks that for Roger. I don't get to eat that." Right? I mean, their connection to their pets is a whole nother thing that it was counterintuitive to us. We weren't really expecting it. But here's what happened. We then were able to go back and strategize around, well, what does that really mean? Well, maybe if we placed these products in the freshest part of the supermarket, people would start to believe that this is as good as when they cook it up themselves. We started talking about it more like it was fresh food. And we even started including things like how to use this in your cooking, right? It can enhance what you're cooking up for your pet. So it just became a whole nother way of marketing and talking about what it is that people want and need for their pets. Totally different than the assumption that we went in with. By doing that, we actually had some real results. Year one in just this country, we were up a good 10 million US dollars by just placing it in a different place, part of the supermarket. Globally, 110 million. So there is real business advantages to being able to understand beyond your initial assumptions and being able to empathize with the people that are using your products and to add value to their lives. So, what is it that we need to do? Well, at Ipsos, we do a few things. We start with some training and we do some real exercises around those four things that I talked about. The Hear Me experience, how do we do some deep listening? We talk about those tips that I gave you. The See Me experience, and we have people from our ethnography center actually take you through an analysis about why observing is better and what you can get from observation versus other things. And then we actually design an experience so that you can be there with people as they're doing the things you need to see them doing. And we actually have some workshopping that can happen after that to help you take this from empathy to action. But aside from what Ipsos can do for you, I really do encourage that you start to bring these back to your organizations in a way that's always on, that keeps it alive. It's very simple these days to reach out and to talk to people. Whether it's just a one-on-one conversation that you can have by Zoom, or if it's a way of giving them tasks to do and asking them to send you their moments and their videos of things that they capture that they think is special. And then if you really want to get deep, stay with them for a couple of days. Let them tell you what's happening over a longitudinal period so that you can start to see the changes that happen and the things that seem to keep coming up as important to them. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for listening, and I hope that there was something in there that you got that you might be able to take back to your organizations. I would love it if you came back and had us really design a wonderful program for you. But I'm wondering here if there's any questions for me that I might be able to answer, and if there's any feedback that you'd love to comment on. Esker, are you there? Are you hearing any questions?
Yeah, I'm here. No questions so far, but let's give people a moment to reflect and to type in questions. So here is a question. Does empathy work require a big setup and a big investment in time and in money?
And money, sure.
Great. Yeah.
So there are many ways that you can approach an empathy program. Yes, there are some massive programs that we've put together, but I'm going to be honest, to just have a simple way for your people to periodically touch base with people doesn't cost a lot and can be done quite easily. And a lot of companies are trying to do this on their own. So if you have someone set that up for you, you can just have your people go in and do that, come back. Now, what I will say is a lot of times when I find that when clients do it on their own, they get to a certain point and that alone is worth a lot. Sometimes it helps to have someone who's used to asking those questions and being more of a moderator, if you will, to help get it to another level of insight. But if you can't do that, I truly would recommend just spending time just being with people. And I'm happy to help if you need some help in, just putting together the right kind of discussion guide or doing some kind of training for your people. Happy to help with that. So it can run the gamut of easy to not so easy. But if anything, do something. I do think it's worth it to just figure out what's the best way to do that. Other questions?
Yes, there's another one from Thomas. Can you comment on empathy in B2B research? Interesting question.
Very interesting. So what's funny is when I did that business question to people question chart, I actually have done it for my own team. So if you think about it, we're typically B2B, right? But again, if you start thinking about your clients, and I entitled it "Clients Are People Too," right? So the difference is how do you add value to their lives? And all of that is still just an empathy program. It's about stepping into their lives, hearing what it is they're saying, observing what's going on, whether that's in a business context or in a home, right? I think it's the same principles. And again, we've had to apply it to our teams as well. If you can just keep thinking of people as people and not as clients and businesses and consumers, I really do think it makes a difference in the culture that you're trying to create.
Okay, thanks. So that's another question. You could say it's about being an ambassador for empathy within your organization. So it's Sophia asking if you are to work successfully with empathy, it requires buy-in from the organization. Do you have any tips on how to engage the stakeholders, how to create this buy-in?
Yeah. And to be honest, when it comes from the leadership, it certainly makes things a lot easier. Here's one of the things that has worked. And by the way, if you are in a situation where you are under some kind of quarantine or lockdown, I will say that leaders have tended to be much more open to spending time with the people they serve. Now might be a good time to jump on this. I'm just giving you a little hint here. But the best way to do it is to have a great experience for a group of people that you consider influencers within your organization. So invite them, make it a half a day, give them time to spend with their consumers and people, set them up, make it easy for them. All they got to do is jump on a Zoom call, but give them some discussion guide, give them some questions to ask, let them just sort of talk. And this is something different than people have always done, right? And I found that when you sort of make it easy and you get a nice group of people sort of talking about it, it really does make a difference. So take advantage of this opportunity, make it easy for them, give them some questions to ask, and then let them start to do the work for you. They can be your ambassadors throughout the organization. Other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? No. I can tell you one of the questions I've gotten as I've done this presentation is about, now that we are not doing face to face, is it possible to get as close to people? And I will tell you, so I believe that we will be back to some kind of normal sometime. Might not be in the next few months, but at some point we'll be back to face to face. What we have learned in the meantime, though, is that I believe there's going to be a hybrid approach that's probably best because what we learned from people by not being able to be face-to-face, by having them sending us videos, by having more longitudinal studies as opposed to spending 8 hours or 10 hours with them in a day, we started doing some ethnographic research where they, were sending us things over the course of a week or 2 weeks, and it's the same person that you're talking to. And we saw very different things. So I would say that right now, while face-to-face is sometimes limited, there's stuff that you can get from longitudinally, touching base with people every day. And once we're back to what we used to be able to do, there's going to be a way of combining the two things together that you can really start to get a nice, broad and deep picture of what is going on. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? Doesn't sound like it. Well, listen, everyone, I just would really, really like to thank you for your attention and time. I hope that what I talked about today was helpful. You can always reach me through Asker and his team there. So let me know how I can be of help. And good luck and have fun creating an empathetic organization. I really think it will make a huge difference in your business.
And a huge thank you from us to you, April. It was a very interesting presentation, very inspiring and very cool examples and cases, I think. So just before we wrap up completely, just would like to remind you that we have a few more IPSOS Insights sessions left this year. One about behavior change and one about the consumer trends that we will see shape the behavior in 2021. So check the website for the dates and details, and you will also receive an invite in your mailbox. So thank you for participating. Thank you again to you, April, and to everyone who joined us today. We'll be back.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.